Hello and welcome to pre-season testing here in Barcelona at the Catalunya circuit. For the very first time, we'll get to see the SLV Season 3 cars on track. Without further ado, we'll have one lap of qualifying to set the grid, and then the drivers will strive, with no collisions on, to go for simply the fastest lap time that they possibly can. At the end of the session, the drivers will be sorted by their best lap time in order to give us the final results of the pre-season test session. Let's go for it. Right, I'm joined by quite a few guests today. Boys, how are we feeling?
Yeah.
Good.
Amazing. Yeah, it should be a pretty fun, chill vibe. Just checking you can see the stream and everything okay.
Yeah. Just looks a bit pixelated.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have no headset, so I will have my mic unmuted when I'm speaking.
Okay, sounds good. Right, hopefully if I can tell me if the
Here we
stream...
got last season's champion, Rito.
with the lap time, and we'll see exactly how the grid looks for the test. BAR
Rio.
knock out the front row by 0.2 of a second over
Easy
every
club.
other team. Their hand
I don't
finally
like my
showed.
absence here.
Julo starts in third place for the test. He's put in a 33.20 for the PRG team, brand new on the grid this season, of course, because I have to sort of acclimatise this for people who don't watch SLV that much. Sobel, new driver for the BFX team, 4th place. Spuda in 5th for WTech. Rito 6th for BFX, our reigning champion. Bluebell for his new team, Team Velocity. 7th place, Hetmenica, double top 8 for PRG. 9th place for Andres. 10th for Grandy. 11th for Anti. 12th for Vladinator. They lock out the 6th row for the test session. Pit crew, then Apple Amazing, the new driver for the KRT. Jaruni, then Kamikaze, then Kubo, Hernandi, Goose, and Ikolowski, the driver who drove for BAR last season, starts 20th. Well, there too, this time start 1 and 2. We'll head to Kubo first. Kubo, your thoughts on that single lap of qualifying?
Well, the BAR cars locking out the front row looks like Eurist's main challenger for winning this preseason testing will be Jake Bratt, his own teammate, after he left VLO. Also, not a great performance from VLO, who finished second last season in the Constructors' Championship. Bluebell Boy manages 7th, which isn't bad, but then I'm down in 17th. Looks like I might be doing a Eurist from last season.
Certainly could
But
be.
at the same time, Eurist last season did not do that badly in the preseason race, so it might be just some car fault. BFX also still hanging on solidly, as well as WTech and also Porsche.
Porsche with a good outing. I'll start the test now. 25 minutes on the clock, and the drivers are underway to set their lap times for the testing session. I'll head to Levy next. Levy, your thoughts on the Porsche performance from there?
I'm really happy with that, with our new driver Julio on the grid. We're really pleased with his performance so far, and I'm sure that he will have a great season, especially with my very brand new strategy, which no one have used ever, I think. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the season, and we will see how it goes.
Can you disclose any details about what your brand new strategy that is that no one has ever used ever is? Yes.
I mean, I don't want to really tell about it, because
Okay.
if I tell it, then everyone will use it, and I just want to first try it out and see how it performs, because it's certainly something different from what we have seen so far.
Yeah. Well, nobody's forcing you. Don't worry about that. Not that the positions on the track matter all too much, but it looks like Julo is currently running out in the clean air of first position. I'll get finally, Jake, your thoughts on the set grid for the testing session.
I mean, they couldn't really hope for anything better. That's a really good first test to see us both first and second, and quite clear. I think Eurist was 2 tenths off third place. I'm not sure. But that's good stuff, and I obviously know it's not position that counts, but I'm hoping to see us both, around top 5 for the lap time, both of us. I think we did really, really well in the upgrades, but hopefully we can, keep that going for the rest of the season. We'll see where we end up. Hopefully better than 5th.
There's been some leaks about potential designs for the BAR car, sort of rumours that the team nailed the regulations for the season, will be massively on the front foot. What we've seen so far today does support that, but, well, firstly, do you think that's right? And secondly, where have these leaks come from? Is there a potential security issue within the BAR team?
I have not heard of said leaks so far, but if I had to guess where they would come from, I could make my guesses. I won't leak them publicly, but I will be filing many reports shortly after the pre-season race. But yeah, I think now everyone can see on track the car. I think there's no hiding it. We did do quite well with the upgrade chances we had. We came 5th, so we didn't have too many, but we didn't have too little. So I think with the ones we got, we did really, really well, and I think we should be a good contender for the championship, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Yeah, so we'll go into the sort of free phase of testing. I'll sort of waffle, but if anybody has any particular thing to say, then feel free to hop in on the conversation, because this is all just about your observations and how things feel. I'll start by saying that obviously with all the cars reset to 0 and then getting their little platforms above that from the upgrades, it's really interesting to see a lot of corners that would be quite straightforward for the cars last season. You're just starting to see a little bit of grip loss around. The rears certainly do skid away when you're going through corners like that. Comic had a big moment on there as he's trying to file through on pit crew, so you can sort of see issues like that. Kubo running down in 18th place. This is interesting.
Depressing, more like it.
Yeah. Well, he shouldn't be this slow.
I know. It's like Eurus last season. It's a curse.
You can definitely notice the top speed of the cars is a lot slower than previous years. I think this will be a good amount off the times that we've had in the last season test. Let me find my phone. Yeah, no, it should be a pretty interesting one. We'll have a little flick through just as we reach 20% of the way through our test. We can have a little flick through of the fastest lap so far. So App Amazing, the developer, the biggest gap to anyone, 3.4 seconds off, running in last place. But you could theorise that he's just dropped back a little bit to open up a gap, which means that he can now get some nice clean air through that. And that will be beneficial because the sort of dirty air effect here is actually quite interestingly because, not because it really exists in this game, but rather even when there's no collisions on, drivers will still try to follow the AI line set out for them. So if you're around another car, you might be able to see it here, if you're around another car, you might take a suboptimal racing line because you want to overtake them, so to speak, even though there's no particular reason to go there. There's no particular reason. It's through the last corner. I think there's more of a singular line, but you see a lot of drivers sort of avoiding other cars even though they're not really there. It's all just ghost laps, but that is the, so to speak, dirty air, and that's why we saw Eurus get into the lead at the start of last season's test session and just stay there, get the fastest lap time, win the testing session by about 0.3, I believe it was. I'll have a look at the lap times from last season just now. Yeah, it's just interesting to see. He didn't actually win any races last season whatsoever. It was just the test session that he won.
Yep, it was very disappointing season for the season 1 champion as well. Even lost out to the PMPs in Baku.
He did, and that was not a strong moment for him. I mean, if you look at his career, he obviously did. He was fastest in the testing session for Season 2. He didn't win any races, as mentioned. His only race win ever in Sunday League Virtual came at the Season 1 Hungarian Grand Prix, the 4th ever race of the competition, which hit 20 races in Interlagos. On the podium that day were Rito, representing Comedy Racing, and Bluebell Boy, representing Flying V Racing. So in that sort of top
Look at
group-
what's happening with me right now. I'm just catching up really quickly.
Hmm.
It looks like maybe you were right about like the overtaking lines.
I think that's definitely an effect to it, this sort of so-called dirty air. Hilarious to see that podium of Eurus, Rito, Bluebell, because that is
Look at that. That's
almost a
a
call forward.
0.72 seconds improvement.
That's unbelievable. He's starting to get into his pace now. Cold tires, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, maybe a new driving style is needed for this new VLO car.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think the drivers do need to adapt. The cars are massively changed, much slower overall than previous seasons, and you just need to keep on top there. Kubo, do you reckon you'll be able to beat Bluebell this season?
Well, that's definitely what I'll be working towards. To proving that I should have beat him in the Drivers' Championship last season.
Mm.
Because it was ridiculously close last season with it went down to the tokenless race in the end.
And I think it was just a bad starting position that meant that you never really recovered from that. Was that right?
Yep, I was very close to doing it, but after a while I lost. I think it was Vlad who was busy also saving SFR from relegation, and since I lost him, I couldn't get the position I needed to stay ahead of Bluebell Boy
Yeah,
in the Drivers' Championship.
that was interesting. I don't think I have the Drivers' Championship on hand. No. Can I
Now
add
it also
that?
looks like Julo's dropped off a bit since a good start to this preseason race, but that's obviously doesn't matter. It's about the fastest laps, but still his overall race pace down to 8th now.
Mm.
It's still the best debut. We've got only 2 newcomers this season, right?
Yeah, well, we'll have a little. Let's have a flip
Oh no,
through the
3.
grid.
3. We have Julo, Kami, and Aptly.
That's bang
Kami
on.
and Aptly doing not so well right now. Julo doing very well.
Mm. We'll have a
In
little look at
comparison.
the. I'll just go up close and personal with the drivers. In fact, if I could just do this. So here you get the drivers in their new cars up close, which is a view that you never really see in the actual SLV races. Here's the white, orange, and black Nuri Racing car with Amazing, the runner-up in the CLV Championship last season, joining us in SLV, as well as the winner in the end, which was Kamikaze, owning his own team, who is one up in the preseason test at the moment, being lapped by Jake Brad, who is quite fast at the moment. It's a very simplistic but fun design for Kamikaze with the Spanish flag car. His teammate Ikolowski not that much further up the road than Hernandi there as well. So based off that, just based off the pure racing pace so far, you could hazard a guess at what the two slowest teams are. Anti in that new purple super fast racing car, and we've got Pit Crew in the Thunder X, unchanged from last season both in livery and lineup. Kubo in the new white Team Velocity car, and Hetmenica in that gorgeous duck egg blue Porsche, staying with the team despite not owning it anymore, having sold the team to Porsche and his ex-teammate Levioso becoming the manager, but he is still around to be driving, and the same can't be said for new manager Levioso, who has other things on his hands. Andres in the slightly revamped WTEC, which is very, very nice for the season, but generally keeping the same shimmering light blue brand. Goose in that interesting FVR car, fluorescent cream, so to speak. Grandy in the THX, Bluebell, brand new driver for the VLO team. Julo, brand new driver, stepped up from CLV. A lot of people said he wasn't good enough because he didn't finish that highly, but if you look at the car that he had and look at how his teammate did, he finished and was the only driver to finish 10 or more positions ahead of his teammate in the final standing. So he's clearly capable in the right machinery. PRG might have gotten it right here. He's running 8th on racing pace so far. Vladinator in 7th, rebranded from last season where he was Vlad01. We've now just got the one Vlad on the grid. Spuda up there, and Sobel in that gorgeous shiny BFX car. Jiruni as well, very high up in the FVR. They failed a lot of upgrades last season, only really hit their stride towards the end. Obviously, the guaranteed speed upgrade helping out, but they very nearly went down just through a total lack of money invested in car development in the season as a whole. Rito, on the other hand, are champion. Urist right next to him, going neck and neck at the moment, and Jake Brad out in first position. Cub, you got anything to add for the moment?
Well, while you were looking for the players, I was also looking at the fastest laps. It looks like Jake Brad and Jiruni are the only sub 32 fastest laps so far, as we're halfway through this preseason testing race. And yeah, surprisingly, like for example, the VLOs have very good fastest laps, despite being down the order. So yeah, it's worth checking out the fastest laps, because that's who the winner of the
That's what it's all
preseason
sorted
testing
by.
race will turn out to be. It won't be the person in first.
Yeah.
So worth checking that out. Bluebell Boy with a 32.18. Then myself, I think I had a 32.60.
So a little bit off still. We can do some
Yeah.
teammate comparisons, that might be quite fun. So Kamikaze is now dropped down to the last running on the pace sim. A 33.50, which is a 35.48 last lap. So obviously with the AI, with their skill level, the thing that makes them able to fight each other, overtake and the like is the pure RNG behind it, that obviously their level will predominantly matter, but sometimes they'll be going faster, sometimes they'll be going slower. It's not always all about the car, because obviously if we had an even grid, even cars, you'd never get any overtakes. Everyone would just be sort of slipstreaming around each other. He's on a 33.50. His teammate is on a 33.52, so pretty similar for the Fuerza Roja cars, around the 33.5 second mark. Amazing, 33.70, that's the slowest time we've seen so far. 33.22 from Hernandi, so you can forgive Apley. He is used to driving the CLV spec cars so far in his career. And Hernandi, who has been at KRT since season 1 and adapted to all the different changes that the cars have gone through, is probably expectedly nearly half a second up at the moment. Next up we have Pit Crew, who's on a 33.03, so nearly reaching that sub 33 mark. Doesn't go that fast, it was 2 seconds slower last lap. He might be on a slightly longer tyre run stint, more fuel maybe. 33.03 for him. His teammate Grandy, who's a little bit higher up, 32.08. Grandy nearly a second faster than his teammate at the current time. That's pretty incredible. Anti, 33.10, similar time to Pit Crew. His teammate Vladinator, 32.52. That's 0.6 quicker. And it was interesting last season as well to see at the end of preseason testing, Vladinator put himself P2 on the timing sheets, Anti P19, so very split always between these drivers. It was to an extent as well in the table last season, with Vlad up in the top 10. I think he was 10th place, 9th, 8th maybe, and Anti sort of well down in the bottom 3, but it's not always the sort of to the extent that you see. And I think if you look at the points, it wasn't a huge amount, particularly considering that 10 of Vlad's points came in the very last round. Should be interesting to see. Kubo, as we mentioned, on a 32.60. He's not improved on that so far and went a couple and a half seconds slower on that last lap. Bluebell Boy on a 32.18. So even though he's in the brand new car, driving the BFX last season, winning the last SLV race, of course, in Interlagos, which took him ahead of now his new teammate, he's adapted to the new car very quickly, so good for him. Hetmenica in the new Porsche car, 32.83, fastest lap so far. His teammate Julo, 32.38, so that is considerably faster, about 4/10.
I do want to mention I did, for example, I did perform worse than Urist in last season's preseason testing, and then in the actual season it completely flipped on its head.
It's true.
So interesting to see how these preseason testing results for all teams, whether they're gonna accurately reflect the teammate dynamic.
They better.
Yeah, I think that's bang on actually. Preseason testing should not always be taken as gospel. We saw Vlad beating out Anti last time, but similarly, Eurus, who is by far fastest in testing, enjoying a winless season. So you never really know what you're going to get there. I think he only actually got 2 podiums, one in Hungary
Baku.
and one in Baku or something along those lines. Not quite sure what it was. But yeah, that was pretty interesting to see. Goose here with a 32.35, his teammate Jaruni with a 31.93. They look to be having a good race car. Just at the moment, that's a very bright car, but it is actually performing decently well on track. He has a very fast time that he's not been able to match, really. I think a lot of the fastest times came in the opening parts of the session, but he's not that much slower. He goes about 7/10 slower. Not quite the 2.5 seconds that we saw from some drivers. We've got Bluebell and Kubo. We did Andres on a 32.38, fastest so far. Don't think he'll improve it this lap, but not terrible that, 32.87. His teammate Spuda, 32.45, so that's interesting to see him with a faster lap time despite being currently running a little bit further back than his teammate, who's just heading through the final chicane as Andres approaches the mid part of the lap. Grandi, who we compared to Pit Crew already, Vladinator and Anti, Julo and Het, Spuda and Andres, Sobel, 31.93. That is a very quick time, and he set that quite recently as well. Compared to Rito, 31.75. So the times are starting to fall a little bit. Remember, just a few minutes ago, it was only Jake and Jaruni below 32 seconds, and now Rito sort of endangers it a little bit there. We'll see what Jaruni can get with this latest lap. It's not really anywhere, to be totally honest. Spuda not going too badly either, but Sobel with a 31.93, Rito 31.75, and then of course the final two to compare, 31.88 for Eurus, who now pulls alongside his teammate, goes deep through that corner, so he won't be too fast on this lap particularly. 31.88 for him. What's Jake's time? 31.72. He's the fastest in testing at the moment. Their last laps, Eurus was just over a second faster though, with just 5 minutes left in this test. It looks like Jake and Eurus, rather particularly Jake, will be top of the timing sheets, and Eurus just trying to threaten. We'll keep an eye on the top few, Levy or Jake or Kubo, if you've got anything to add.
Part of Eurus' contract was letting me win the pre-season race, so we'll see how that goes.
Interesting, considering he's a bit of a testing merchant. I'm not. Yeah, that's an interesting clause to have in there. I mean, what are you predicting for the start of the season, Jake, based off this form?
Well, we have a good car, I won't deny that, but it's obviously, it's 2 upgrades a race now, I think, right? So it's going to be, that gap may not stay for even a race or two. So for the start, I'm hoping for, good things, try and make the most of the pre-season we had, but, I'd like to see podiums and wins, but
Of course.
it depends really on token expenditure and all that good stuff, but we'll see.
Holy shit. Rito set a 31.32.
Jesus.
That is quite a last lap from the Polish driver.
He cannot stop winning.
What's the score in the Poland game, Kubo?
0-0, Lewandowski missed a penalty.
Oh my lord.
It was saved by Okola.
They might need a bit of that Rito power at the moment. See if anybody's been improving on their lap recently, as they just slot through the final part here. No, Jaruni not, Sobel not, nor Spuda. That's a pretty fast lap from the front runner there. Not too bad at all. Apple Amazing still going pretty slowly. Let's see if the times have improved from the last few. 33.5, 33.2, 33.1. I think EK's improved his time a fair amount. 33.0, 33.1 from Anti, and 32.6 from Kubo, who has Still sort of on track, not that high, but that's not a terrible time. He's just carried it with him for most of the sessions so far, so he'll probably finish
Looks
off
like
that
a
time.
problem of the lines with Julo right behind, beside.
A little bit of dirty air through that final corner, perhaps. And we'll see what people are doing at the moment. Will Andries improve on his lap as we come across through here? Not quite. It's unlucky for him. 31.93 for Sobel. Spuda down to a 31.78. What do we think about WTEC's chances?
Well, they were very solid in the grip-oriented tracks in Korea and in Brest, where they just denied BFX victories. And they'll probably be looking to carry on that grip-based performance this season. There's also new tracks. There's Zamość, that's very grip-based, I would imagine.
Zamość, is that how
especially
you say it?
Zamość, yeah.
Zamość.
Especially in the last section, which will be very hard to do while you're drifting around, sliding.
It's an interesting
So it'll
one, 'cause you
be-
get a lot of straights there, but you get it broken up by some pretty tight corners. I mean, to an extent, like this final sector here, where you get this long straight and then a pretty tight hairpin, you can see a lot of tyre skid marks just on the exit there, over the Spain runoff decoration. But yeah, and then obviously with Zamość, you have the final sector with the very, very grip-intensive corners, and you're going to be struggling a lot on worn tyres, particularly in cars that aren't particularly adapted to it so far. But it is round 7, so teams do have time to get their upgrades in before that. A question to Jake, with the advantage being not clearly in your favour, because Rita seems to be going quite fast at the moment, but to start the season, would you be looking to spend some tokens?
I'm not going to disclose anything towards that, but I'm sure if people put 2 and 2 together, we would like to make the most of this advantage, and we know it may not last. We'd like it to last the whole season, but the main idea would be to try and make the most of this advantage. So obviously we will be using some of these tokens, but specifics aren't going to be revealed. Obviously that would be quite silly of me and unfair on Eurist to do that, but the plan is to make most of this. I can see Rito is quite fast, but it's pre-season. His teammate is he's not there. Me and Eurus are together, so I think we're quite happy with what we're seeing, and we just got to hope that this carries on into the actual races.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought I might be able to lure you into an answer to your competitors to give away the plans, but maybe not. We'll have a look
The
at
the Forza Rojas and the KRT's all 10 seconds behind 16.
Yeah. I mean, that is pretty big. You've got Anti quite a ways off Hetmanica as well as Jake Brad saws through a lap ahead. We're nearly out of time on the clock here, and once it is run down, we'll get 60 final seconds, 1 minute left for drivers to be able to put in their final lap times of the session, just give it their all. And it looks like from our top runner, we'll get just the end of this lap before we get the 60-second countdown. How will Rito do on its final competitive lap of the race? It's not going to be a new fastest one. We wouldn't really expect that from him. Eurus can't set one. Jake sets a very respectable 32.10 for his very last lap of the testing session. Girouni can't do much with this final lap. Sobel looking quite racy, does set a new fastest time. It's a 31.60, and it looks like that might just have pulled it, so that BFX are 1 and 2 in testing. We'll have to see when we get the final results screen, but that is an immense lap that he has saved all the battery for right at the end of the test session, and that is pretty good. He's brand new to the BFX team, of course, owned by this very man, driving for their arch rivals, who Sobel is just sort of distracting a little bit here on his in-lap. Bluebell not getting the best of final laps. You can really see some of these cars crawling around the corners. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to deal in the actual races themselves when they're racing against the monstrously fast BFX and BAR cars. Here we are. The final results. Rito is our fastest man after 46 laps of testing here in Spain. Sobel is second fastest on the racetrack, 31.06 31.60. Jake Brad, third fastest with a 31.72. Spooder, very respectable with a 31.78. Then Urist with a 31.88, closely followed by Giruni with a 31.93. Going up into the 32s, Grandy 32.08. Not too bad from him actually. That's a pretty solid lap time. I think that puts him 7th fastest out of everybody. So on fastest lap pace, that's not too bad at all from the Thunder X driver, but not entirely representative still. Then we've got Julo on a 32.17. I'll just scroll down through here. 32.18 for Bluebell as well. And who have we got next? 32.33 for Vladinator, 32.35 for Goose, 32.38 for Andres. Those are all pretty close. Then Kubo only managing a 32.60, Hetmenica a Pitker a 32.75, Hetmenica a 32.83. And then finally we're up into the 33s. We've got Anti and Ikolowski. Anti just really bad at testing. For a man who's actually quite good at qualifying, he's not got the one lap pace in a testing session. 3.10 for him, 33.22 for Hernandi, 33.50 for Komikaze, and 33.70 for Apple Amazing. You can really see, apart from Julo, who's adapted quite well, but these new coming drivers, first and second in their CLV championships, 19th and 20th in the SLV testing session. So you might argue that actually Julo probably showed more promise despite not finishing as high as in the standings. He's proved that here today. Any final thoughts before we conclude testing for Sunday League Virtual Season 3? Kubo.
Decent, but not what VLO was expecting. Interesting to see BAR at least giving BFX a run for their money. We won't have just a one-team championship this season, I hope.
Yeah, true.
And it'll be interesting to see if the teams behind of the FVR, Porsche, the WTEC, maybe even the other teams can wisely upgrade the cars to get to that level where they can compete as well. And it looks like Rito is going to be fighting for another season of complete victory.
Our reigning champion keeps it strong, tops the timesheets in the testing session. Jake, any thoughts from you?
Compared to our last season, obviously finishing 7th for season 1 and then 5th in season 2, I think this is really, really good promise for progression. I'd be silly if I said I'd want the championship this season. Obviously, I'd like it, but that's not the goal. To make steady progression is what we want to see. And, at this rate, that's what we're getting, and I'll be very happy, and hopefully we can keep the upgrades going. Maybe, we finish 7th season 1, 5th season 2, maybe we're going to finish 3rd this season, and maybe a championship next season. You never know, but really good start, and, looking forward to the racing, and hopefully we can score some good podiums and maybe some wins.
Fantastic. Obviously, the team that led the championship after the first round last season. Wonder if they're going to plan to do the same thing this season. And Levy, if you're still with us, any particular thoughts from you about Porsche's performance?
It's fine and something that I expected. It's not bad, which is exactly what I hoped for, so I'm pretty happy with the results. And Hat is still completing his mission of being number 2 driver, so
Wow, interesting. Right, those are our testing results. Of course, 2 more upgrades before round 1, but these are the cars that have come into testing. Their exact performances will be revealed tomorrow evening at 7:45 UTC, so don't miss the actual statistic reveal. And a final comment, Kubo, which team has surprised you the most? Because obviously we thought BFX with the most chances, would probably be able to retain that high status. But which team do you think has improved, or
Well,
not being as
definitely
good enough?
BAR. I mean, I did somehow gain information of how BAR's upgrades went before this testing and before the upgrades reveal, but yeah, it was very successful upgrades from them, and very well reflected in today's preseason race. That they've just got a ridiculously solid car compared to the previous seasons. It's nice to see them jump up in terms of quality so far, considering how awful their first season in SLV was, with Jake Brad struggling to even finish in the points until the very final race. And now he's here and he might even challenge for a Constructors' Championship. So
Absolutely.
that's very surprising.
They do have the disadvantage, even the teams who have the fast cars now, of the 2 upgrades per race, that will make it difficult to hold a competitive advantage. But all season long, obviously, we will have the index number that tracks the car performances, so you can see that as the races tick by. Long season, 13 weeks ahead of us, and it's all to play for in Sunday League Virtual Season 3. But for now, this has been pre-season testing. Bye-bye.